On today's special crossover episode with the Locked On Wild, we're going to talk about Marco Rossi, the Central Division, and yes, a little John Hines.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a special crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Predators, your daily podcast for the Minnesota Wild and the Nashville Predators. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making both Locked On Wild and Locked On Predators your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure to subscribe on all of your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On Wilds and Locked On Predators, and Kimmel and Emma Lingan join me to take a look at whether Nashville can bounce back after it was not a great season for the Predators. We'll take a look at some of the things that led to a collapse down the mountain and whether or not the Predators can get back up. And I'm sure we'll discuss contracts on the Minnesota Wild side of things because there are a couple that are out there, among many other topics. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wilds, and joined by the dynamic duo of Locked On Predators, and Kimmel and Emma Lingan. Ladies, thank you both so much for joining me here today. And let's start on the Predator side of things, and I'm going to pose the joke as more of a question from the top of the show. Surely it's got to get better this year, right? Like it can't be a duplicate season for the Nashville Predators considering everything that happened last year.
Surely. Surely. That is the $1 million question that Emma and I have wrestled with existentially since we refer to last season as 84 years long, because it was just excruciating. Those 82 games were like 84 years. I think that's the big question. And I wish that we had a very specific, solid answer for you. And here are our 3 points why we know that it is either going to get better or you're going to see more of the same. But if you tried to nail that down, it's a lot like nailing Jell-O to a wall. What are we going to get from the Nashville Predators? You could tell me that the Nashville Predators sneak into the postseason, and I would be like, okay, I could see a scenario where maybe that happens. You could tell me that the Nashville Predators repeat last season, and it is even more painful to watch than it was last year. And I would say, yeah, I also believe that. So I don't know that we're going to know for sure who this Predators team is until we get into training camp, maybe even the start of the season, because they have a lot of mental rust and dust that they have to shake off from last season. And I don't know how they're going to look and how they're going to be able to do that until we see them together back on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, far be it for me to be the optimist here. We know that's usually Anne out of the two of us, but I do have to think, and I've said this before, that based on everything we know to be true, everything that happened prior to last season, everything, like no one was looking at the Predators roster heading into the season and wondering, where are the goals going to come from? Who's going to score the goals? Like that, it seemed to that had been addressed. And it's just based on the overall body of work from years prior. It's like, we have to chalk up last year to just being a fluke. It was a really big, really bad fluke, but I mean, and I'm not at all suggesting you just run it back and don't change anything, but I think that you have to treat it like the outlier that it is until it becomes a pattern. And that's why I think this year is going to be so telling. As Anne said, we don't know who this team is because we've now had 2 very different seasons under Andrew Brunette as a head coach. We had one that greatly exceeded expectations and one that woefully did not even come close to meeting them. So it's like this is kind of going to be the tiebreaker season, I think, where we're going to learn a little bit about who this team is, hopefully.
Is this a course correction from the U2 concert debacle?
Oh,
They all
man.
should have gone to like the Taylor Swift Eras tour, and like that would have worked. Maybe, I don't know. We're like, sage the locker room, like build a fire and sing Kumbaya. Like, you all, whatever you did, undo it, because everything, really and truly, when you look at the Predators season, almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I don't know that we would have anticipated, and nobody really did anticipate, just how many things became a struggle, whether you're talking about injuries, whether you're talking about the roster figuring out ways to gel. Barry Trotz referred to it after the season as leadership paralysis, because you brought in these like very vocal, very experienced veterans into a locker room that already has kind of a leadership core. And meshing that was a lot more difficult than I think anybody anticipated. So there are some specific on ice things, like surely they're not going to drop like flies 2 seasons in a row. Like, they've got to stay healthier. But you never know. Like, you just, there are some things you just don't know. Like, it's that off ice component for me that has me a little bit more concerned almost than the on ice product, because I do think the on ice product is good. I don't think it's great, but I think it's good. I just think if you don't get the off ice stuff corrected in the off season, we saw last season, I think some of that carries over, and that's where the snowball starts rolling down the hill.
Yeah, I think that the off ice stuff, well, talking about the on ice product, it's good, or it should be a heck of a lot better than it was last season. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this team should have, won a Stanley Cup last year, but they certainly should have finished better than third worst in the league. But again, we keep talking about next season, and it's like Ann said, you could tell me anything. It's become a running joke on our show that we're just like, sure. Like, the entire team could request a trade, and I'd be like, okay, sure. And then they could make it to the conference final, and I'd be like, sure. So it's like, you really just don't know right now, which is the hardest part.
The word that I like to use is high variance. There's a high variance for what happens with the Predators this season. And we'll talk about that and the rest of the Central Division in segment 3. But just before we go to break, Andrew Brunette, as you both mentioned, had a very good season 2 years ago, and this past season, not great. What is the temperature of Brunette's seat? Because I think something that people don't really take into consideration is he has not been a coach for a lot of years. He came in relief of Joel Quenneville like 6 games into the season for the Panthers. And then after that season, after they were bounced in the playoffs, he was replaced. He went to the Devils. And so he's in his first few years as a head coach. So he's still learning kind of how to do this too. So is Barry Trotz giving him, some wiggle room to try to navigate through this? Like, what is the temperature for Bruno in that head coach's seat?
I think it depends on who you ask. So, Emma, I'll take the fan base answer, and then you can give the real answer, because I think if you take the temperature of the fan base, I think it is very, very clear that seat should be extremely warm. And that was very evident towards the end of the season. When you bring in players and you have expectations like the Predators did going into last season, and the difference between expectation and reality is so vast, whether it is ultimately true or not, that lands on a head coach's desk, whether that is 100% true or not. And most of the time it's not 100% true. So in the fan base, I think he is on the hot seat. I think the fan base was ready for him to go last season, and that did not happen. Emma and I say this on our show too. In Andrew Brunette's defense, he was hired for a very different job than he had last season. He was hired to come into a team that is leaning into the youth, and he was coming here to develop youth and to kind of grow this team. Not a rebuild, but a retool. And then all of a sudden, Barry Trotz goes out and he gets these veterans, and it's a very different dynamic. Very different dynamic, coaching wise, on ice wise. So there was a little bit of a expectation switch for the job description for Andrew Brunette. That's what I will say in his defense. It was very hard to watch the team lose and not feel like there has to be a big change. And of course, that automatic change everybody is going to call for is going to be the head coach. Now, Emma, go ahead and take the floor on this one, because you nailed this. She nailed this answer, and it's surprising to a lot of people. Emma, is he really on the hot seat, though? Go ahead, take it away, girl.
He is not. Not at all. Not even a little bit, I don't think. And to double down on what you said, Anne, I think if you ask a large portion of the fan base, their opinion, Barry Trotz's seat should be very warm right now. You have no idea, Seth, how quickly this fan base has turned on Barry Trotz, the savior of this franchise. Oh, so quickly. How the turntables. But yes, I think that fan base, perception is one thing. But then if you look at, to your point, Seth, about Barry Trotz giving Andrew Brunette a little bit of wiggle room, and to Anne's point about Brunette's job now, his job description now being very different than the one he was hired for, I think Barry Trotz has got to recognize the role that he played in that. It's like, well, why is his job description so different now? Well, because of the moves that Barry Trotz made. So that's not to say that Brunette is totally blameless and should just run it back and shouldn't change anything and shouldn't try to adapt and grow as a coach. But, like at the end of the day, you're a head coach in the NHL. You need to be able to adapt. But I think that Barry Trotz is the one who holds the keys for Andrew Brunette. And so as long as that's the case, and as long as Barry Trotz recognizes that he did not deal Brunette the greatest hand last year, and that's not even with the new additions. That's even with the trades that happen, getting rid of guys like Alex Carrier and waiving Dante Fabro and all of those things too. It's like he didn't really give Brunette a great hand to work with. So again, plenty of blame to go around here, but I think the more realistic and the answer that fans really don't want to hear is that Brunette's seat is pretty cold right now.
Yeah, as a neutral observer, I feel like that's how that should be. And it's just classic. It's just classic GM. Like, Barry Trotz gets a bonus at work, so he goes out and buys a car without looking at it at all. And he comes home and it's like, there are rust stains on this, or the back tire is flat, or the transmission is just unworkable. And he's like, yeah, but look at the outside of it. It looks great. It's like, we should have talked about this. Yeah. It's just how that goes with GMs. They're like, have money, spend money. So we're going to sneak in a quick break and then switch. And I will happily answer any Wild related questions that both of you have. There are a couple of big items that still have yet to be decided for Minnesota Wild fans. So I'll do my best to give an update on those. And we'll take a look at kind of where both teams stack up in the Central. That's all coming up as we continue today's special crossover edition of Locked on Wild and Locked on Predators after this. Today's crossover edition of Locked on Wild and Locked on Predators is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there. Taylor Swift fans, take note. Logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. My favorite Game Time feature, panoramic seat view. All it takes is one time of having a seat view that's obstructed in even a little bit. All it takes is one time. And then you are constantly aware of what you're going to see from your seat. And Game Time's like, it's okay. We got you. Here's what you're going to see. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to today's special crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Predators. Once again, we thank you for making both shows your first listen each and every day. We are, of course, your team each and every day as well. All right, ladies, I know you got some burning Wild questions, so I am an open book. I will answer them the best that I can.
Okay, I want to go first because I want to go a little ways back and get your answer on this, because this is one of those questions that has been bothering me since the first round of the playoffs. So, Seth, looking back at the series against the Vegas Golden Knights, I'm just telling you, it looked like Minnesota had it. What did you all need to get it done? What was the difference in that series? I just need to know, what was like the one thing that kept the magic from happening?
Gustav Nyquist needed to keep his leg a foot, one foot on the other side of the line. And I truly believe that if he was onside for that goal, I think that wins Minnesota the series. Because in these first round failures that the Wild have had, and they have not advanced out of the first round since 2015, I pretty much have these playoff failure statistics tattooed on the inside of my eyelids. After a while, you memorize it. So this has been the thing, though, that Wild teams have been missing. Any of these instances that they have lost in the first round, they get the early lead in the series, and the team that they're playing kind of claws their way back and takes the upper hand. They have not had the counterpunch. They have not had the slow momentum uppercut. And that Ryan Hartman goal to take the lead, that was it. Mm-hmm. That was it. That was the slow the momentum uppercut to stagger your opponent and then give you the opportunity to get back the upper hand. They checked it for they checked it a couple of different times. I think the first review was for goaltender interference, and we're like, no interference. And then they reviewed it again. I knew in the back of my head, okay, this is getting overturned. And when I saw the replay, I let out a string of words that can't be repeated on air. Several of them.
We know those words.
I was in my car and I pulled over so that I wasn't driving while I was trying to watch the replay. I saw the replay, uttered another string of words that can't be repeated on the air because it was right. It was right there. It was Shooter McGavin putting to get the gold jacket on 18, and the TV tower collapses. So Happy Gilmore has to putt around it, and he misses out on the gold jacket. It was right there, and it was stolen away because a leg was slightly offsides.
And we love Gustav Nyquist. So that was so painful. Just we had like secondary, we know him angst from that because, man, y'all were right there. Y'all were right there.
What could have
He's
been?
Like, we know, Ann. Thanks for bringing that up.
But it's one of those things where you go back and you think about the postseason, and I'm like, I just need somebody to tell me what it was because my eye test tells me one thing, and then it didn't happen. And I was like, I need somebody to make sense. I'm sorry, but it was helpful to me that you answered that.
Well, it's like they got the check marks of everything else that you need. They had Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy both take over the series. Check those boxes. Philip Gustafsson played great.
Amazing.
Check that box.
Yep.
Aiden Hill got roughed up pretty good in the early part of that series. Check that box. They had some supporting cast members that stepped up to contribute. Check that box. They just didn't get that impact momentum swaying goal that they thought they had, and then Bruce Cassidy was like, no.
Sorry to bring that up, but that was helpful.
It's okay. As you can tell, I've clearly moved on from it.
Clearly.
Hey, you want to feel better about yourself? We can go back to talking about the Predators if you want. That'll feel better right away. Okay, but I have a question that may or may not stir up angst based on what the answer is, quite frankly, but it's more of a forward looking question, and it's a simple one. What's going on with Marco Rossi? Because I think a lot of, well, again, this goes back to, I think, the fan perspective versus reality can be very different sometimes. But I, as someone who covers the Predators, I will get messages and questions from fans asking, and I quote, "Are the Predators still, or no? What did they say? Are the Predators out on Marco Rossi now?" To which I say, I don't think they were ever in, but I love the enthusiasm and I see how he would make sense. He would make sense for a lot of teams that are in need of young centermen, which is basically all of them. So obviously we know that the primary holdup with the contract situation is you got to clear as much space as you can to re-sign Kirill, right? But can you give us any kind of, temperature check on where things are with that right now?
I'll give you what we know as concrete that has happened, because I think part of the issue with this whole situation is just there's been a lot of dot connecting. We know that Marco Rossi's camp is looking for an extension in the neighborhood of Matt Boldy's 7x7. You look at all the young contracts that have been signed throughout the course of the offseason. Matt Coronado got a 6.5x7. There are several others that are in that $6 to $7 million range as far as an AAV goes. It is what market experts call the going rate. And Bill Guerin has a different number in mind. The Wild countered that proposal with a 5x5. Rossi's camp was not super thrilled by that. There have also been some proposals exchanged about a shorter deal that has also not really met much of a response. The Vancouver Canucks offered the 15th overall pick in the draft and a player as a trade proposal that was pretty quickly dismissed by the Minnesota Wild. Not interested. So Bill Guerin he's been asking a hefty price for Rossi in trade. And as of yet, it has not been met by anybody. But that's because I think there's the contract side of this too, is that not only is whoever acquires him, not only are they giving up assets to get him, they then are turning around and signing him to a long-term deal, because otherwise it'd be foolish to spend assets to get him. And offer sheets, none. There have been a couple of teams that have kicked the tires as far as trades go, but there hasn't been a ton of movement there. So at this point, his options are to hold out or to drag this as close to the start of the season as possible. What I think would probably work the best for both sides is if he goes the same route that Bowen Byram did and signs like a 2-year deal, gets him through restricted free agency. That gives both him and the team time to try to get something else done. If that is not in the cards, then that walks him all the way up to unrestricted free agency. That also makes him easier to trade because now he's got some term behind him. And ultimately, I don't get the sense that he's going to say, no, I'm not going to play, because that really doesn't help him either. Right. It is Bill Guerin, I think, trying to hold the line as far as what he thinks Marco Rossi's worth, but Rossi's a great player. He's a great player. He's a hard worker. He has added muscle again, so now he's right around the 200-pound mark. So he's going to be a tank out there. And for a team that struggles to score, he has been a 20-plus goal scorer the last 2 seasons. So he's up near the top of the list as far as goals go. There's a lot that he brings to the table, but I think something that people need to be honest about is that he's not really a shot creator himself. Like, if you can get good playmakers on either side of him, he's capable of knocking rebounds home, but he's not somebody that's really going to create his own shot. So there's just a different kind of a price tier for a guy like that than there is for, say, Matt Boldy or Kirill Kaprizov. And to be fair, Boldy's deal was signed a couple seasons ago. If he signs that same deal now, it's probably like a 7x8 or a 7x9. So market rate for that too. But I think it'll end up getting done sometime during training camp. I think at the end of the day, it's just it makes way more sense for him to play, and it gives the Wild time to work on a trade. It doesn't do him any good to sit this out. And I guess it's just in his best interests to play is kind of the thing that I keep going back to. Like, it's in his best interest to show that he's worth being traded for if he doesn't want to be here. And if the Wild don't want him, his value's not going to go anywhere if he's like, yeah, I'm going to just drag this into December.
Do you think it has the potential to be a kind of relationship severing conversation if it doesn't get resolved? It just feels a little, they seem very far apart and just not willing to get there. And you know, I get, like, probably going to get done by training camp, but if it doesn't, like, ooh, that feels a little, that would be nerve-wracking.
And this is kind of the interesting part of it, Anne, is I think a lot of that stems from just Bill Guerin's very set in his ways. Mm-hmm. He is a general manager who, if he thinks that you are somebody that will help his team, he'll move mountains to get you. If you're somebody that he doesn't think is like a key piece on a championship contending team, it's real hard to change his mind. This is the exact same thing that happened with Kevin Fiala a few seasons ago. There was no changing Bill Guerin's mind on that. And it kind of feels like, although he has said that the Wild are not really they're not actively looking to move him. They want him to be part of the team. So he said things that suggest otherwise, but we have seen that if he gets set on kind of what needs to happen, it's like somebody going and buying a pair of shoes and they like the first pair of shoes they see. Kind of hard to change their mind and talk them into something else. Like, you're just, at that point, it's just destiny, and that's just how it's going to happen.
Yeah. It feels like the way that he's talked about this, like, it feels like he has been very clear, like, go ahead and offer sheet. We aren't having it. Like, we'll match it. You know, I said something to Emma the other day. Sometimes there are GMs that pee in a circle around a player, and it feels like he has done that at the beginning of this to mark their territory, and yet that next step just hasn't happened. So it's been really interesting to watch from afar as it has not unfolded, but kind of has, as the stage has been set for him. But if we are talking contracts, let's talk about the big fat juicy one y'all have coming up. What's Kaprizov worth?
Oh,
and we'll tell you what we think he's worth as a team that does not have a Kaprizov. So,
well, I, as somebody who has followed this team, you know, not in a serious manner before I took over Locked On Wild, but I still am aware of the history of the roster and lack of superstars. I am in the blank check camp. I think if he has a number that he wants, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to go give him that. If it's $15 million, that doesn't really scare me, because we have just seen how hard it is to get those types of players. And, the NHL Network was doing their top 20 wingers right now. He clocked it at number 3 on that list.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a guy who is in the top 10 or 15 of players in the league right now. It is very hard to get those types of players. And when you get them, you need to do everything you can to keep them. The Wild have said, Craig Leopold has said, nobody's going to offer more money. He's technically right. But I think behind that statement, I think there is a desire to get this done no matter what. And to not let it drag out, to not let, I know it was a little bit of different circumstances, but Marian Gaborik left. They don't want to have a franchise player leave. Again, you could argue that Kirill Kaprizov is infinitely more important than Marian Gaborik was. You don't want to let players like that walk away multiple times from a franchise. So I think right now it looks like the sticking point is the term. Are they going to go 4, 5? Are they going to go up to 8? I think that is really the only thing that needs to be ironed out. I don't think there's a number that scares the Wild as far as AAV goes. I think they're willing to do whatever to make this happen.
Yeah, I would. Let me tell you.
Yeah, we'd like one of those.
We'd like one of those.
When do you see this getting done? Like before, do you have a timeline? Like you said, you think it's going to get done. Do you think they wait until he is a free agent, or do you think they get this done before the end of the season?
I think it'll get done before. It may even get done before the season starts if they're able to make solid progress on it. Kaprizov's been in Europe for a good portion of the offseason. Bill Guerin has been taking care of some things overseas as well. He's got duties with the Olympic team. He's got other duties as well that he's been attending to. So they haven't had a chance to get face-to-face on this yet. I would imagine once they do that they're going to get most of it taken care of, most of it ironed out. That's the same thing that they did for his last extension was, they were kind of trying to do it over the phone or remotely, and they just weren't getting it done. So he came to the United States, they got face-to-face, and they ironed it out in, I think, less than a day. So I think it'll be something like that. And with this type of contract, with this type of extension, you want to make it big too. Like you want to have an opportunity for fans to celebrate it. This will be the biggest contract that has been signed by a Wild player ever, eclipsing Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. So you want to make it a big deal. You want to have appropriate fanfare for it, and doing this during training camp when fans are around and fans have the opportunity to kind of celebrate it feels like the right way to do it. I'm really not super worried about it, to be honest. He likes it here. He loves Minnesota. Minnesota loves him back. And it would be one thing if the owners of the Minnesota Wild were the owners of another Minnesota franchise right now that is absolutely being lit on fire, and rightfully so. If it was ownership like that, where maybe the money actually was a legitimate concern, then I'd probably be sweating this one. But I don't get the sense that the money is going to be a hindrance whatsoever.
Can I just, as an aside, say, did that family really just let the front office just strip the team for parts and then say, you know what? Actually, we are going to come back. We are going to come back. Like, what?
Yeah,
It
they sure
doesn't
did.
make sense.
They sure did.
They sure did.
And I'll fill you in later. This is the Minnesota Twins.
I know a little bit about this. Emma is the gatekeeper to my learning baseball. I'm not fluent in it yet.
Oh, yeah,
But I'm here for
I'll
the drama.
fill you in later.
I'm here for
that's
the
basically
drama.
what happened. It was
There is sizable drama because not to get too baseball-y, but The commissioner of baseball during the All-Star break said, we feel like there is a transaction that's going to be made pretty soon as far as the sale of the team goes. Where did that go? Where did that statement go? So I was all sorts of riled up today. Shout out to Brandon Warren of Locked On Twins, who has been covering it very well. If I were hosting Locked On Twins, I would have to turn the mic volume on my microphone down to minimum because there would be a lot of yelling.
Amazing.
Well, why don't we finish up with just a look at the Central Division here and taking a look at where both of these teams can expect to stack up in the standings and who's going to be dwelling in the cellar. We'll talk about all that as we finish today's crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Predators right after this. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. I'll just say, just as a football fan, probably don't pick any of the New York Jets. Sorry to Jets fans. They're probably not going to factor into anything. But if you're looking at a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or the Green Bay Packers or the Minnesota Vikings, you never know. You can cover everything from futures to MVPs to even who you think is going to get to the Super Bowl. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Final segment of today's crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Predators. Again, make sure you subscribe to both shows, both on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms. You can listen to us wherever, on your phone, in the car, on your laptop, at work. I know people that listen at work while they're trying to be productive. I salute you. And make sure you subscribe so you can take advantage of all those opportunities as well. Let's talk a little bit about the Central. We know the last couple of seasons, it's been Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas, in no particular order at the top of the division. Last year, it was the Minnesota Wild getting wild card 1. The St. Louis Blues picked up wild card number 2, and the Chicago Blackhawks did not pick up anything. So, Ann and Emma, let's look at the Predators here first. Like, what is the expectation? We're kind of wading out into the fog here, considering everything we talked about in today's episode. But let's say things go better this year. Even let's say good to great. What are the expectations for where the Predators could finish in the division?
If this was any other division, I would love answering this question. This division is such a bear. And even if, and again, like Emma and I, we watch this team, we study this team. We have been at all of the games. Like, it is not that we don't know about the team. It's that what the flag nog was last season and what do you even do with it? So it's so hard to predict. If the Nashville Predators fixed some of what was going on, if they are, let's go with you, good to great, the duct tape in a dream comes to fruition, I think you still have Dallas, Colorado going to be at the top there. I think, Winnipeg probably going to stick around, even though, they made some adjustments to their roster. The problem in answering that question is I don't think any teams are going to get significantly worse. And so, like, good to great, give us a wild card spot. And like, we'd be like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, hockey gods. Because nobody is really going to there's no team that you look at in the Central Division and say, you know what, that's a team that is going to have a drop off. There's just not one, unless you're talking about the Nashville Predators doing it again.
I mean, too, when you look at if there is a team that I would say, like relatively speaking to what they were last year, they might see a drop off. It would be on paper Winnipeg, but they just seem to stay up there. They always seem
Just
to
hang
be there.
around.
Like they just seem to hang out. They don't go away. They're like cockroaches. They never go away. And so it's like that would be the one team in the Central that on paper I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, probably going to take a step back, but they never do. And so that's the one that I just kind of put that in its own category. And then you've got like Dallas is still going to be up there.
Mhm.
Colorado's still going to be up there. I feel like Colorado is maybe approaching the end of their window, but even so, they're still very much in the window. And then you've got St. Louis. St. Louis is a little bit like Nashville in a way that it's like you never really know what's going to happen. It's
Mhm.
like you never really know what they're going to do. So it's like, and St. Louis also like Nashville for so many years has been like, well, we're not going to full send and try to compete right now, but we're also not going to rebuild and
Mhm.
scrap it. So we're just going to put our hands together and hope every year. And last year it worked out really well for them, but like it may not this year. So who knows? So, and then you've got, and Ann and I have talked about this as well. Utah is a team
Yes.
that we are really keeping an eye on. I think that they're going to be scary. Now, I don't know that they're going to be Dallas, Colorado scary, but I think that they're going to take a big step forward. And then you've got Chicago, who, I mean,
That's
you know
the
what they're
face we
doing.
make.
You
That's the
know what
face
they're
we make.
doing. They're tanking to get
Poor
Gavin
Jack.
McKenna. They're tanking to get McKenna. And you know what? They're going to get him because they're the Chicago Blackhawks and nothing bad ever happens to the Chicago Blackhawks. So I think that you look at Nashville too, and it's like, even if the Predators have a better year, and again, that shouldn't be hard to do, it's going to be hard to get a lot worse. I don't see them finishing below Chicago, but I don't necessarily see them finishing above any of the other teams that I just mentioned.
Mhm.
So it could mean another, second from the bottom finish, even if they are significantly better than they were last year. So it is tough in this particular division that is such a bear.
It's a juggernaut.
Yeah, it's a full-fledged gauntlet other than the one team that's just like, "Hey, Gary, don't punish us for not
Mhm.
don't punish us for not going full out here because there's a name
There's a
that we're
guy.
after."
There's a guy out there.
Yeah. Is
They're,
I'm glad
they're
you
gonna
brought up.
get him too. That's the worst part. It's
Yeah,
gonna
It's
happen.
gonna work. It's gonna work. It
It's
works
gonna
every
work.
time.
I'll
Anyway.
hate it. I'm glad you brought up Utah because I have kind of a similar feeling that I feel like Utah is the one team in this division that everybody is going with the objects in the mirror are closer than they appear for this year. Like
Mhm.
there's still some things that Utah needs to do to really firmly assert themselves. But it feels like their learning curve this year could really be accelerated to the point that all of a sudden you look and you're like, oh, wow, they're 2 or 3 games out of
Mhm.
third place. Like, what happens? But it's all that young talent, all the young talent,
Yep.
all the skill. And if they get that put together, they are going to be a problem.
Mhm. They're a dangerous team. That roster is such a dangerous roster. And Emma and I just talked about this. They are such a great combination of this amazing young talent with just the right amount of support from veterans that can bring out the best in the young talent. So, yeah, I think Utah's going to be great. I think Dallas is gonna be I really do think Dallas is gonna get it all together. I think they're gonna finish first. Where is Minnesota gonna land? Because here's the thing, you are the under the radar, you're the she's all that of the Central Division, where people are like, "Oh, it's just a nerdy artist," and then all of a sudden you're gonna be the homecoming queen. This is what I wanna know. What is happening with you all? What are you going to do to everybody else in the Central Division?
I will say with this caveat, if the Minnesota Wild find a way to be even somewhat less injured than they've been the last 2 seasons, which
Yeah.
has been atrocious. from an injury perspective. If they find a way to be less injured than they were the last 2 years, I think they hit the third spot. Like, I think they can definitely. I mean, before the injuries took over, they had the most points. They had the best record in the league on December 3rd. They had Kirill Kaprizov playing at a Hart Trophy pace.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Boldy was on pace for a 50-50 season. And I know that's not really super into the season, but let's also keep in mind the barometer. If you're in a playoff spot by Thanksgiving, you usually stay there.
If you're not, you don't, just FYI.
Yeah.
Ask us how we know.
If you're Chicago, you don't make the playoffs. But then Kaprizov played in 41 games. Joel Eriksson Ek played in 41. The Wild had 3 players that played in 80-plus games last year. You know how many the Winnipeg Jets played 80-plus? They had like 12 players that played in 70-plus games last year. Yeah. That's basically your entire top 6, which I don't get the sense that Winnipeg will be able to do that again unless they have made some sort of deal that has involved a blood sacrifice that you can't break. I think the Wild will be healthier this year, and I think as a result, I think they can definitely hop up and grab that third spot.
How much credit do you give to John Hines for getting the team there? We love to talk about this.
Well, it's funny. Fans are a little annoyed by some of the things that have been done, in particular to not playing young players high up in the lineup or higher up in the lineup, which turns out may be a thing from both previous stops. So, I mean, he has to be given credit for pushing the right buttons and kind of minding the shop. But I just my whole thing is, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to write it off and say, no, he can't be a coach that can lead you to a postseason run, but his playoff record is what it is. That's not something that you can't just ignore that. 4-16 in the playoffs that's not great. So I think he has done some things that have helped this Wild team be better than they were under Dean Evason. But I also remember when Dean Evason was fired, we were told, well, John Hines does a lot of the same things. So there have been some tweaks, but it's a lot of the same sort of overall style and structure that the Wild played under Dean Evason. And there are a lot of tendencies that Dean Evason had as a coach that John Hines also has. So this is a big year for him. It's a big year for Bill Guerin. It's a big year for the Wild. And it would be nice for a year to have lots of things go well, as opposed to ending the season and saying, well, we lost in 6 games in round 1 again, and everybody and their mother was injured.
Yeah. Okay, that 4-16, sorry about that. Some of those 16 were our bad.
Yeah, it's when I first saw that number, I was like, oh, yikes.
Sorry.
But
yeah,
hey, at some point you would think there will be some key postseason wins, and we'll just hope that they happen sooner than later. But I think that'll wrap it for today's episode. We went a little on the long side here for today's show, but it's all good stuff. It's all good crossover content. So listeners, make sure to check it out. We appreciate you tuning in as you do each and every day of the week. And make sure to give Locked On Predators a follow, as well as Locked On Wild, so you don't miss out on any key off-season topics as we get closer and closer to the start of the preseason and then the regular season. We are less than 2 months away from the start of the season. It's getting close. So make sure that you stay up to date with both shows so you don't miss out on any new episodes. We have them for you all week long as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day.